Good morning. This is Paula at the Giodone Library, and this is STEAM Stories. So today I'm going to show you how to make fireworks in a jar. Yep, fireworks in a jar. But first, I'm going to read a story, and it doesn't really have anything to do with fireworks because that was hard to find, but it does have to do with ghastly ghosts. It's called Ghastly Ghosts by Teresa Bateman, illustrated by Ken Leming. And I am reading this with permission from Albert Whitman and Company. It does take place in the winter. When old Dave's uncle passed away, he left a place for Dave to stay, a cottage on a lonely height, far from friends and city lights. A door hinge squeaked when Dave moved in. He didn't mind, just gave a grin and got some oil to fix the door. It's just some rust, he said, no more. Unpacking all his boxes, he heard footsteps where none ought to be. From attic floors above his head, I'm sure it's just mice, he said. Then from the bathroom came a moan. The pipes are old like me, said Dave. I hope they work. I need a shave. Those whiskers don't look good on me. Not that there's anyone to see. Then from the cellar came a wail that made Dave start and then turn pale. He laughed. Must be a broken pane. That's easy enough to explain. He settled in and tried to rest. He heard odd sounds, yet did his best to act as if he didn't care. Still, he felt lonely living there. A storm that night turned rain to ice. Dave said aloud, it would be nice. Indeed, I'd say that I'd rejoice if I could hear another voice. The lonely cottage creaked and swayed. Old Dave rocked back, his fiddle played. The wind blew wild, and then something said, ghastly ghosts in the old coal shed. He paused and gave his head a shake. Was he asleep or still awake? Never mind what I just said. I'd like a living voice, not dead. Then something even louder said, ghastly ghosts in the old coal shed. Wind whistled on the windowsill. Old Dave began to feel a chill. The fire's getting low, no doubt, or maybe it's about gone out. I'll poke it up, then go to bed. Yet voices even louder said, ghastly ghosts in the old coal shed. Dave grabbed the poker, his desire to stir things up, restart the fire. But with a sinking of his soul, he saw the hearth was out of coal. No. Again, the choir, much louder, said, ghastly ghosts in the old coal shed. The wind was ice. The pipes would freeze. The house grew colder by degrees. There was a chore Dave had to do, fetch coal to see the cold night through. He got his boots, gloves, scarf, and hat, shrugged on his coat, and that was that. Outside, the wind began to roar as old Dave opened up the door. His lantern flickered high, then low, as Dave stomped out through knife-edged snow. Then loudly wailing, something said, ghastly ghosts in the old coal shed. Now cut that out, old Dave was firm. I'm not the type to quail or squirm, and though I'm not inclined to boast, I fear neither ghoul nor ghost. It's true, old Dave was brave and bold. He needed coal to stop the cold. But even brave men might think twice when voices weave through wind and ice. Old Dave gave out a hearty sneeze. He had a choice: get coal or freeze. I'll just pop in and do the job. His wool-gloved hand reached for the knob. He shivered and could barely speak. The door swung open with a creak. Then, like the cold thunder, something said, "Ghastly ghosts in the old coal shed." "That's it," Dave roared. "I've had enough. So come on out. I call your bluff. It's cold enough to freeze men blue. I haven't time to waste on you." The lantern faded to a spark, and something flickered in the dark. "Ghastly ghosts. I know, I do. I'd like to bet you're cold ghosts too. That's night's not fit for man nor beast, be he alive or he deceased. So rather than stay here and wail, feel free to help me fill my pail. And then, before we all expire, please come on up and share my fire. Ghastly ghosts. And by the way, if you come to my house to stay, you must find something else to say." The wind dropped down, snow drifted white. The moon began to light the night. They've heard a whispered groan. "All right." Now, Dave's got guests at his place. The ghosts don't take up too much space. In fact, they're quite good company. His friendless nights are history. The cottage still sits on a height, but lonely? Well, that's hardly right. Warm windows glow, a fiddle's heard, and from the coal shed, not a word. I hope you enjoyed that. I thought that was a very interesting story with ghosts in the cold and everything. So now I'll show you how to make fireworks in a jar. So first you need a jar that's filled, let me turn this down a little bit, that's filled a little 3/4 of the jar full of warm water, not hot or boiling water, just warm. And then you need oil. And light oil looks so you can see it on the top. So, yeah, it's brand new. I haven't even taken this off. And you need a bowl. And I'm going to measure 3 tablespoons, so you need a tablespoon, of oil onto the water. And what do you think will happen? 1, 2, 3. I bet you know. What happens is that the oil goes to the top, doesn't it? Because the oil is lighter than the water. The water is heavier, so it stays on the bottom. The oil goes to the top. Let's see if you can see that. There's like a line of oil. That's good. Now, put 2 tablespoons of oil into the bowl. Oh, and the bowl, if the bowl is like Pyrex or slick is better rather than like a paper bowl, it makes it easier to do what we're doing if it's slick. And then you need food coloring. I think I'll do this one. Now put 1 drop of food coloring. I've done this over and over and over again and found out this is the best. 1 drop of food coloring of each color. I should be clear about that. 1 drop of blue. Now I'm going to do green. So 1 drop of green. Oh, I got a teeny little drop more. And 1 drop of red. Sometimes these are hard to come out. Come on. Boop. Now I'm going to take my tablespoon to do this, but do it with you can do it with a fork too. You want to stir around. And what you'll notice is that those big drops of coloring are now making more small little drops. That's what you want. And why does it do that? The same reason as the jar. The food coloring is heavier than the oil too. So they won't mix, and the food coloring goes down to the bottom. I just want to get it's nice to get really, really little food coloring droplets because of what's going to happen next. So now I have it. I don't know if you can see that. See all the little bits of food coloring? Now this is the tricky part because you have to pour this in very carefully. And the way I discovered is if you tip the jar, so you'll need help. You'll need help from a parent. Tip the jar and then slowly pour this in. Okay, I went a little bit too fast there. Uh-oh. Some of my food coloring got really, really blobby. Oh, don't go together. Okay, now watch what happens. And while it's happening, I'm going to try to get more of these little food colorings. They didn't seem to want to go in very well. Let's see how the food coloring droplets are going through the water. And when they hit the water, it's like they explode. Ooh, there's a red one. Come on, what about over here? Go down, guys. Maybe I made them too little. Oh, no. There they go. There's a big blob of blue. They look like little explosions of fireworks. Let me do that again. So I'm going to do this again while I'm explaining. So it's all about which liquid is denser than the other. The water is heavier than the oil, so it stays on the bottom and the oil stays on top. The food coloring, though, ooh, I better turn that on. The food coloring is heavier than the oil too. And so when we pour the food coloring in, the little dots of the food coloring in with the oil, it has to go through that layer of oil. There's the layer now because it's 5 tablespoons. And it goes through, and then when it hits the water, it's like an explosion. It does what it does when you put food coloring in anything to color. And let me do it again. It should be good. Remember, you want the water warm, but not hot, not boiling. So that's good. I'm going to wipe these out because my little food colorings got blobbed all together. And that's what you're going to try to avoid. That's why you have to pour it in slowly, is you don't want those big blobs to go through because then it's going to color the water totally blue, and then you don't get, or whatever color the big blob is, and then you don't get the little explosions. So again, we put 2 tablespoons of oil, and can you see what it does? I'm getting oil on my table. When I pour it in, it goes down first, but then it goes right to the top. So that stays in there. And then, 3 tablespoons of oil. I changed that on you, didn't I? 3 tablespoons of oil, because the 2 go into the bowl. Then 2 tablespoons of oil into the bowl. And then I'm going to put the color in. This time I'll try the orange one. Remember, just 1 dot, 1 dab of color. The red seems to not want to go there. And I'm trying not to get a really big blob. I kind of did, though. And there's the blue. So that's just 3 drops of color. And now I am stirring this up. It actually works better if you use a fork. So I can get littler bits of the color so that we don't have a big blob that goes in there and then colors the water. Oops, I kind of got orange in there. How did I do that? So, and then I'm going to tilt the jar like this, and then pour this in slowly and carefully. Oh, here we go. And then watch. As the food coloring goes through the oil, there's one little one. Boop. That's tiny though. That was probably hard for you to see. Here we go. They're starting to go through. Really tiny bits. I really got them tiny that time. There they go. There's the blue. It exploded. And it looks just like fireworks in the sky. So, from there. So it's a really pretty easy science experiment to do, and you get to see little explosions of color. There they are. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you like that story about ghastly ghosts. And next week, I will be reading Christmas stories to you. Thank you so much.